Welcome to ArcGIS Field Apps, working with mobile device management systems. My name is Heather McCracken, and with me today is Joel Whitney. We're both product engineers on the development team that build the ArcGIS Field Apps. In this demo theater, we'll provide you an overview of the ArcGIS Field Apps, discuss MDM technology and how it works, and talk about MDM capabilities in our field apps. Joel will be giving a demo so you can see it all in action. And we'll finish up with some tips and considerations when deploying ArcGIS field apps using an MDM within your organization. Before I jump into talking about MDMs, I wanted to call out which apps we're considering for this session. First, we have our field apps, which help you optimize efficiency of your field activities with the power of location intelligence. These include ArcGIS Navigator, Workforce, Tracker, Explorer, and Collector, as well as our new premier app called ArcGIS Field Maps. Field Maps brings map viewing, data collection, and location tracking all together in one app. We also have other specialized apps like Survey, Quick Capture, Mission Responder, Indoors, and Earth, which enable even more of your workflows. But I want to note that any mobile application, whether it's our Esri apps or otherwise, are deployable via an MDM. An MDM is a security-focused software that enables IT departments to implement policies that secure, monitor, and manage end-user mobile devices. MDMs enable organizations to optimize the usage of its employees' mobile devices while simultaneously protecting its corporate resources. In our experience, MDMs are typically employed by mid to large-size organizations to provide a centralized and coordinated means of managing these devices. This diagram gives you some insight into the categories of things that you can configure within an MDM, the details of which are items like keeping track of your device assets, their geographic location, and monitoring them for compliance, defining approved apps and access points through block and allow lists, setting up Wi-Fi and VPN configurations, pushing certificates. You can perform remote management tasks like installing, uninstalling, or controlling updates of managed applications, and ensuring security of these devices by defining IT policies or restricting device features like cameras or browsers. You can also lock or wipe devices remotely if needed. So you can understand the kind of benefits using an MDM provides to an organization. It allows them to easily manage their devices, improve efficiency of app deployments, keep apps and data secure. It also allows active monitoring for malware or other threats, and it enables a BYOD, or bring your own device, and corporate device strategy. So how does MDM software work? Well, there are two key components: an MDM server, which is what the MDM administrator is configuring through the console, and an MDM agent that resides on the mobile device. So when an admin defines and assigns policies and applications through the MDM console, the MDM server pushes that configuration to the agent on the device. And it's that agent's responsibility to apply that configuration to the mobile device via the system, the platform APIs. When thinking about MDM workflows and building these capabilities into our apps, we look to the App Config community standards. This community is focused on providing tools and best practices around configuring and securing mobile apps for both MDM vendors as well as us as developers. ArcGIS Field Apps MDM capabilities include support for application configuration parameters, as well as support for app-level VPN.
Now this is something that Joel will show you in action in his demo in a few seconds, but app configuration allows you to remotely configure settings in the app. This is something that an application developer like Esri explicitly supports to help streamline workflows for their users. For example, Field Maps supports parameters that streamline authentication and tracking configuration. I want to point out specifically the portal URL parameter, which Joel will show in the demo. This is a parameter that's supported by the majority of the field apps and specialized apps. It allows you to specify the URL for your organization's portal. So it will take you directly to that page where users can put in their credentials. You'd be surprised how many folks either forget this portal URL, or with fat fingers, this is a significant gain in their experience. And the second capability of our field apps is our participation with the app tunnel. There's something special that we have to do as developers to participate. The VPN tunnel is what encapsulates and insulates, really secures that communication between the device and your backend resources. Administrators can give full access to the VPN to any app on a device, or they can selectively enable approved apps to have that VPN access. So Joel is going to be showing this in the demo. He'll be talking about the per app VPN, where it is scoped specifically to an application. And with that, I will pass it over to Joel.
Thank you, Heather. In the following demo, we're going to show you how you can use a mobile device management solution that can help your organization better manage its mobile users, devices, applications, policies, and securities. Now for this demo, we'll be using VM AirWatch, also called Workspace ONE, but it's worth noting that there are many other MDM solutions available that can help you achieve the same level of configuration for your security, application, and device management. For example, Microsoft Intune, Mobile Iron, Samsung Knox, and many others. Now throughout this demo, I will focus only on a few parts of AirWatch, although it's worth noting that there are many other additional features and configurations that you can take advantage of. So it's a good idea to do some research ahead of time if this is something that you're interested to learn more about, and how you can utilize this technology to streamline your organization's workflows. Okay, so let's take a look at AirWatch. If I log into the console as a console administrator, I'll have full access and permissions to all parts of the console. If I go over here to the device dashboard, I get a breakdown of all the devices in my organization. It gives me a quick overview of the status of devices, apps, and its users. And it will help draw your attention to things that need your attention, such as any devices that are out of compliance. So you can scroll down here and you can see things like your compromised devices, devices that don't have a passcode, devices that are not encrypted, overall number of devices, last seen within the last 24 hours, and a lot of other information. If you go over here to the sidebar, you'll see a lot of different options for things like monitoring your organization's devices. You have a option here for looking at devices like your list view, compliance policies, certificates, things like that. There's this resources section for helping you manage your applications, device updates, and some profiles. You have your accounts section, and this is where you'll be able to add more users, user groups, and more administrators. There's things like this content option, email, telecom, and groups and settings where you can add more assignment groups, and we'll take a look at what this looks like here in a little bit. Now, it's worth mentioning as we go through this demo here in AirWatch, each one of these MDM solutions is going to be a little bit different in their UX. So, some of the buttons here and the naming of these things will appear different, but the overall concepts should remain the same. So when we talk about setting up Esri mobile apps with your MDM solution, it really comes down to just a few simple steps. First, you need to add some users to this MDM solution. We then have to add those users' devices into the MDM. We can add the application into our MDM that we can then deploy to our devices. We can then create a profile with specific configurations and security policies. We can then assign an application to devices and users. And then all you have to do is sit back and watch the settings and configurations that we have set up get pushed to the device. So now let's take a look at how we can actually deploy an application such as ArcGIS Field Maps to a device that we already have rolled in our MDM. So when we deploy ArcGIS Field Maps through AirWatch to our iOS device, another thing that we may want to do is actually preset the portal URL that we want the field worker to connect to. And this is a really useful mechanism for helping users get signed in quickly. What we'll see in a little bit, an example, is how a user can actually sign into an enterprise organization manually, but setting the app configuration setting for portal URL will help streamline the sign-in workflow and reduce any frustration from the field workers end. So first, let's show how we can actually deploy ArcGIS Field Maps to the mobile application. So what we need to do is we go over here to Accounts, Users, List View. We can actually scroll through the users in our organization, and I can view the user that I've already set up here for this demo. I can click on that user account, and I can view the information about that user, so some of their basic contact information. I can view the devices they have. So if I go in the devices, I can see a nice list view of all the devices, including this iOS device that was last seen a few minutes ago. If I want, I can add a new device up here. I can edit any other existing devices, and I have some other options like deactivate the user, add the user to a group, send them a message, etc. So if I actually go ahead and click on this device, this will bring up a new window, kind of like this device overview, where I can see a lot of different information, like the device is not compromised, there's no violations, when it was last seen. It actually shows that I have Do Not Disturb enabled, which is something I did for this presentation. You can see that it has a couple profiles installed, so we're going to talk about those in a little bit, how we want to configure those. We can see the applications that are installed. These are ones that have been provisioned by the MDM. Can actually go ahead and click on this, and I can see all the apps that have been installed here. Next thing we're going to want to do is add a profile. Now, one thing to note, something unique to AirWatch, but other MDM solutions also have something similar. The way that you provision your profiles and your apps and all those configurations is done through what's called a smart assignment group. And this is just a way to easily group devices and users into groups that you can select the profiles and apps that all of the users' devices in that group will get. So if we go down here to Groups, All, and then Assignment Groups, you can see a number of the assignment groups we already have, including this one for Dev Summit MDM Demo. I can click on that and I can see the users who have been added into that group. I can see the profiles that are associated with that assignment group. So we have this Dev Summit MDM Demo profile, and I can see the applications that are already assigned to that group. Notice that ArcGIS Field Maps is not yet assigned to it. So I can go ahead and click Publish. So if we want to look at how that profile is configured, we can actually go into Resources and Profiles, click on Profiles. And if we scroll down, we can see this profile that we have configured for this demo. And if I hit the Edit button there, you'll see this dialog pops up. You can see some general information about this profile, the name, the assignment type, so auto. You can see that it is been assigned to the Smart Group Dev Summit MDM Demo, so all of the devices and users in that group will get this profile. And you can see there's a whole bunch of options here on the left-hand side. The ones that have the green are the ones that have been modified. The rest are just set up in their default settings. So you see here for passcode, I have require passcode on the device. That allows a simple value. You see there's a bunch of different restrictions. So OS level restrictions you can set on the device. So allowing the use of camera, allowing FaceTime, things like allow app removal, allowing wallpaper modification. So you can see there's a whole bunch of things here. So some of these are pretty specific, but so it's really important for any of you who will be actually going through and setting these things up to just be aware of all the different options you have here. And the options may be a little bit different between iOS and Android, but overall you have a similar type of options. You also have this VPN configuration. We're going to talk more about this in a little bit, so don't worry about this right now. Yeah, once this is done and you've made your edits, you can kind of just hit save and publish here. You can see the device assignment. So because this was already assigned to that smart assignment group, it was already installed on my device, so the status is unchanged. You can go ahead and click publish. Okay, so now that we have our user, our device, our smart assignment group, and our profile, the next thing we're going to want to do is actually go ahead and add a mobile app. So let's go ahead and go to resources, native apps. And here you can see a list of all of the applications we have in our MDM that we can deploy to devices and users. There's a bunch of these internal applications that we've uploaded, as well as a number of public applications that we have pulled from the App Store and the Play Store to push to the devices. So if I go down and look through the list, you can see that ArcGIS Field Maps for iOS is not already added here. So what we want to do is click on the Add Application, select the platform, search App Store. We can actually go ahead and search that, and you'll see we get our search returns this ArcGIS Field Maps. And to add to the MDM, all we have to do is hit select, and then we can go ahead and modify any of this information if we'd like to. I'm just going to leave it as it is and hit save and assign. For the distribution, I want to assign this to the Dev Summit MDM demo group, so I'll give it that name, and I'll select my Dev Summit MDM demo smart assignment group. You can choose on-demand app delivery, so this lets the user go in and download it themselves, or you can select auto. We have the option to set some restrictions as well. So first we want to make sure that this is going to be a managed app. We can do things like remove on unenroll. So if you ever decide to unenroll that device, it will remove the app as well as the sensitive information that was included in that information into that application. You can prevent removal, so the user is not allowed to uninstall it. And if they already have the application installed, you can actually say you want to make that application managed now. For VPN, we're not going to enable this right yet. And for the application configuration, we're going to leave that as is as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create and save this assignment. And you'll see that now in this assignment status, I have added to my iOS device. So that means the app is going to be installed there. I can go ahead and click publish. And now the application will get pushed to my device. So if we switch over to the iOS device, we can see what that looks like. So now that we have assigned the application to the Smart Assignment Group, I can switch over to my iOS device, and you can see shortly after that assignment was updated, I was prompted on the mobile device to install the Field Maps application. I can click install, and the application should start installing. And you can see here as it's installing here. Now, another thing to notice on the iOS device, when you enroll the device in the AirWatch MDM, you'll have a couple other applications installed as well. You'll have this hub application. And this application will actually show you your device compliance. It will show you things like the enrollment status, any messages that have been sent to this device. You can actually click send data here, which is really just a way for you to sync your device with the MDM. So this is useful if you're doing any testing and you're trying to update settings to the device. What can normally take maybe a few minutes every now and then is you can actually kind of force that sync to happen by clicking that send data button. The other application is this catalog app, and this is an application that will just show you all the applications that have been assigned to you. So you see here I have Field Maps, which is not quite installed yet. We have the ArcGIS Navigator app that has already been installed. And we have this Pulse Secure for the VPN that has already been installed. So now that Field Maps has been installed, what I can do is I can open the application and I can start using it. And the first thing you'd want to do when you start using the Field Maps application is sign in. So the typical process for signing into an enterprise organization is tapping that sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise button and thus specifying a new URL. In this example, I am just going to do arcgis.com, but this could be any organization that you have. And I can go ahead and I can sign in, and now I see all the maps that appear on the list. So not too bad, but obviously if we can streamline this sign-in workflow for our users, all the better. So if I sign out and kill the app, what we're going to do is switch back over here to the MDM and add an application configuration. The easiest way to go ahead and add an app configuration setting to a application's assignment is to just modify one of your current assignments. So you see here that we already have the app assigned to this Dev Summit MDM demo assignment group. I can go ahead and I can click on that and it opens this dialog for this assignment. So we saw this earlier. You can see the distribution. We can see some of the restrictions we have. And you can see this section for application configuration that we didn't set up when we initially configured this assignment. So I'll go ahead and I can tap edit. I get this warning that it's going to apply the changes to the devices in my smart group. I can hit yes, and then I can toggle to enable this send configuration, where I can go ahead and I can add a portal URL key with a type string and a value of arcgis.com. So this could be your portal URL, for instance. And then all I have to do is hit save, and you can see that the assignment status was unchanged because this application was already assigned to this device, and I can hit publish. So now all I need to do is switch back over to my mobile device. I could wait a few minutes just to make sure that the profile is pushed, or I could go ahead and open up this hub app where I can go into the device and send data. So this will do that sync that we talked about earlier, where we'll pull down the most current profile. Now, if I open Field Maps, you'll see that Field Maps automatically connects to that portal URL I specified, so I don't have to manually enter in the URL, and it presents the authentication page for that organization. And I can sign in and see all the maps that I have access to that I need to do my work. So just a quick recap, that was just a short demo of how you can actually deploy the Field Maps mobile application to an iOS managed device, and how you could set the app configuration settings to predefine a portal URL that you want your field workers to connect to. So now that we've seen how app config works, let's take a look at how you can actually create a per app VPN profile for an application. Now, this is a common topic for a lot of enterprise organizations because a lot of the time, the portal resources will be behind a firewall that the field workers may not have access to when they're out in the field. So if we switch back over to AirWatch, the first thing that we're going to want to do is go back into our profiles that we have already created. And if we edit that Dev Summit MDM demo profile, we can go ahead and look at the VPN configuration settings that were set for that profile. You can see I have the connection name, I have the connection type for Pulse Secure, I have the server URL, I select the per app VPN rules, I tell it that it can connect automatically, I set the correct provider type, so for this case it's packet tunnel. And the important thing to note here is that you also need to specify the domain for the services and URLs that you want Safari to have access to within the VPN. And this is important because applications like Field Maps use what's called a Safari view controller, which is essentially a Safari view within the mobile application to sign in. And if you don't provide Safari access through the VPN to these domains, then Safari essentially will be treated like an out-of-app process, and it won't be able to connect to the portal. So now that we have our profile configured for VPN, per app VPN, we can make sure we publish any of our changes. You see that there were really no changes that we made there. We were just viewing what we already had configured. So now that our profile is saved, what we're going to want to do is make sure it's being used by the application that we want it to be used by. So if we go over to our resources and apps, and then our native apps, you'll see we have this list view. We can go over to public. And this time, let's go ahead and modify the profile being used for the Navigator application that has already been assigned to this device. So if I go in here into edit, save and assign, you'll see I have this, similar to what we saw with Field Maps, we have this Dev Summit MDM demo assignment. I can actually go ahead and click on that. And what we're going to want to go to here is we're actually going to want to go down to the tunnel and other attributes. And you'll see here that we have this per app VPN profile selected. And this is what we want to make sure we have here. We can go ahead and click save. There's no changes because this device already had Navigator installed. Now if we switch back over to our mobile device, what we can do is go back into our Hub app. We can click send data, and this will just do that sync again so we can make sure we have the latest profiles. And now if you've ever used a VPN on an iOS device before, you've probably seen that there's a VPN icon that shows up in the top left corner of the status bar. Now, it's not showing up right now because we're using a per app VPN that has only been scoped to Navigator. So if we go ahead and open Navigator, you'll see that VPN icon in the top left now appears. And if we close out of Navigator or put it in the background, you'll see that the VPN icon disappears. But now that we have VPN access with Navigator, we can go ahead and we can access a portal, and you'll notice the domain there, .esri.com, within that portal URL. That is the Safari domain we granted access for. You'll see we get the login page, and we can sign in using per app VPN to a portal behind our firewall and have access to the maps and services to be used with a Navigator. So just a quick recap. That was just a short demo on how you could actually deploy both ArcGIS field maps and ArcGIS Navigator, as well as pushing a variety of settings, so portal URL through the app configuration and per app VPN, so you can access your internal resources. And with that, I will pass it back to Heather.
Thank you, Joel. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how an MDM deployment works in practice. These next few slides, I'll highlight some of the categories of parameters that are supported in the field apps as well as the specialized apps. You can see that we have authentication settings that allow you to guide how that authentication workflow works in our field apps for both field maps and Explorer. We also have settings that allow you to anonymously access your enterprise, again, in both field maps and Explorer. And we have location track settings that allow you to define the upload frequency of your tracks or last known location in both field maps and in Tracker. And Navigator supports biometric authentication, which, when enabled, enforces fingerprint or Face ID. And when thinking about the specialized apps, you can see in the table that almost all of them support the portal URL parameter when launching the app. ArcGIS Earth, it is coming very soon. I think it's planned for this first quarter of the year, and with Mission Responder, it is on the roadmap. So that's something that we see as a universal parameter, something that streamlines workflows for the majority of our users. ArcGIS Indoors also has additional settings that allow you to brand the app, so you can change the splash screen and sort of the skin of the application. Survey123 has quite a few parameters associated with authentication and portal configurations, diagnostics, and data recovery. And App Studio also supports some portal configuration. So what's important is that when you are creating custom applications, you can specify and support your own MDM settings. So that's something for you to think about. Well, that is a short time window for a pretty technical topic, but hopefully this session has given you some insight into MDMs. I want to leave you with some deployment considerations. Think about those app config settings and how they can streamline your workflows. We are trying to hit the mark there to make your workflows more efficient. Something to note, if you are on the Android platform, Android Enterprise is required in order for the MDM to be able to send those app config settings. So that's something that you should look at. So if you're on Android Legacy, that's not something that's supported, and that's a platform thing. It has nothing to do with any particular app's support. For VPN and network configuration, make sure you're working with your IT department to ensure that our application has access to your internal resources as needed. And remember that in certain cases, for some of the applications, we use underlying browser technology, like you saw with Joel using the Safari View Controller, Chrome tabs, sometimes external browsers. So you need to ensure that those pathways have access to the internal resources as well. If troubleshooting, if you're having any challenges, use Fiddler or Charles Proxy to look at the traffic to see if you can learn something maybe about those network configurations, if that's the challenge there. I'll encourage you to consult the blogs and our help topics and give us feedback, especially on the app config parameters. If there's something that could streamline your workflow that we don't already support, please let any of us know and reach back out to the apps team through GeoNet, through the community, through the app, through our feedback links, however. On behalf of Joel and myself, we'd like to thank you for attending today. And please have a look at these resources. You can hopefully click these links or access these QR codes. But essentially, have a look at the help documentation for any of the mobile apps that you're using. Search for the keyword MDM or app config. look at the blogs, and hopefully you'll find the content you're looking for, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.